If you are young, do not get a mortgage. You're about to hear, in fact, I'm just going to be honest. Most of you guys are most likely going to disagree. Well, this is the best thing ever. No, property ladder. What if you want to get into the property? No problem. Have you considered this? And that's exactly what we're getting into this video right now.
There's nothing more. A lot of our parents, especially those who came into this country in a very, very Bandulu way, they were working on other people's NI numbers. Some of our parents don't have any NI contributions. They've got no pensions. Some of them don't have no state pension. So now they're at 66, 67. They're scrambling. If you don't own a home, now, I hate this mantra of where people act like owning a home is the rite of passage to success. Like you've made it, now you've bought a home. No. So whenever I see someone shaking keys in a Instagram post,
Facebook or IG,
congratulations that you was able to save the money. Let's talk about the deal that you've got. Let's talk about what you paid for.
And in fact, I'm going to argue real quick before we get into this. I'm going to argue that the money that you saved, had you have kept it, and you learn how to invest by reading books like Richest Man in Babylon and plenty of other ones, you would make that money go a lot further than you dumping it stuck in one place, and the property is not even yours. If you can't pay, you'll quickly find out how soon you could become homeless. Essentially, they can take that off you like that.
Paid for the flat. Let's talk about how much you spent on the renovation. Let's talk about the return on investment. Let's talk about the yield. Is it over 10%? Now, everyone talks about buying property like it's the most important thing in life. In my head, if everyone's doing something, it's probably not the most business efficient thing to do. And I'm not going to say that buying property is not a good thing. If you're doing HMOs, if you're buying land and building units, if you're buying a property which is derelict and you're increasing the value of the property, yes. But the average person is just buying
Wait, and he'd even say if you're buying an investment property, how can you call something an asset when you're living in? Make that make sense. You're calling it an asset, and then you're living in it. Is it putting money in your pocket? What is an asset? What is a liability? Do we need to go back to basics? Is it putting money in your pocket? No. Is it costing you money? Yes, it is. How are you calling because it appreciates in value? Oh, okay. Now, okay.
If you're buying a property which is derelict and you're increasing the value of the property, yes. But the average person is just buying a property, which is fine, because one would argue and say it's better to pay off, your mortgage and pay off a landlord's
pay rent.
Mortgage. And of course that makes sense. But everything for me is the return on investment. Now, as you know, I'm into commercial property. And let's say
hold on, let's rewind that bit.
Mortgage. And of course that makes sense. But
why don't people think like that when they're going to the restaurant? Because when you're eating at a restaurant, you're also paying off the mortgage of whoever owns that commercial property. So why don't you think like that? Oh, well, I don't want to go restaurants. I don't want to pay off someone else's mortgage. You think you're just buying the food? You don't think they factored in, okay, well, the rent, main d'oeuvre in French, the man hours. I don't know. All of a sudden, my brain is thinking in French now, but the labor costs, everything is factored in the meal that you're having. But why aren't people primed to think like that? Well, I don't want to be paying off someone else's mortgage. I'd rather be. Look, if you don't plan this could be the worst financial mistake you ever do in your life, period. Oh my days.
Everything for me is the return on investment. Now, as you know, I'm into commercial property. And let's say, for instance, I can spend 60k and I can open up a private hire space. And let's say that 60k can make me 6k a month in profit. That's 100% near enough yield. And I'll get all my money back in 1 year. Somebody might use that 60k to buy a flat, okay? And let's say, for instance, they rent it out. They might only get £1,000 a month as a yield, which is like maybe I don't know what that is percentage-wise, but let's say they're only going to make £12,000 profit in that whole year. Yeah. I might make £60,000 profit. Let's just accumulate that over 25 years, just of typical mortgages. Let's say I was renting somewhere for that 25 years, never bought a property. My investment is better than theirs.
By miles.
Yeah.
See, buying property is the banks have fooled us into it. And don't get me wrong, it's important to be able to have your base and sleep, but buying a property is not like the best investment ever. It's very specific on what the investment is. And remember, the banks have found a way of hoodwinking us to letting us know that we've got to buy property. The people that win are the banks. You remember that when you actually look at a mortgage and look at what you're spending over the 25 years. If you took out a typical 200k mortgage, let me just figure out the maths on this now. And once again, it's because it's spread over such a long period of time. So let me get
It
this
makes it
mortgage
seem like
calculator
it's
out,
worth
yeah.
it.
And a lot of people don't actually realise what's going on. And don't get me wrong, you need to, not all of us have the money to go and buy something cash. But when you actually break it down, so let's say someone's taking the average property in right now, they said is 288k in the UK. So let's do a 300 grand mortgage, yeah? Over 25 years. Now we're going to do it as interest only because someone wants to keep their payments down. Let's say the interest rate is going to be, I think the average interest rate right now is 5.5, I think. So let's do it at 5.5, yeah? We're going to calculate that now. From a £300,000 mortgage over 25 years, you're paying back an interest of 412 grand. Your interest, according to this, is more than the actual property you're buying. Now, when you think about that,
how does this register? And I'm sure in the comment section you might see someone justify. No, it is no problem. I guess it's different with, depending on what opportunity you've got in front of you, because I am not addressing someone who's buying this as a pure asset, trying to flip it, add value, or they're not living in the house. Completely different story. But how can you hear something like that and still be so defensive? Don't you see it's your money? Like, I don't even want to talk too much. Let's just watch.
But it's better off. You're better off paying your own mortgage instead of someone else's. That's if you don't know what to do with your money.
Interest only. You don't get a property at the end of that.
No, because then what happens now is after that you still got to pay the repayment.
Yeah.
But the reason why some people go for interest only is because it's cheaper. So now, if this was an interest only mortgage, this person will be paying back every month. I'll tell you now, monthly. Does it say here? In a monthly, assuming your interest rate stays the same at the 5.5, they'll pay back £1,375 a month from that. Now, if we made this now repayment, so it's gone from 1.3, is if it's interest only. If it's repayment now, this person will be paying back 1,800.
Okay.
But then their interest now is only 252 is their interest now. So, but because people sometimes, their affordability, when they go for the interest only, they're being stung. But a lot of people don't, the maths behind buying a property, a lot of people don't understand. That's why I don't own a residential property at the moment. I own commercial. Because for me, the ROI on the commercial is a lot more than the residential. Don't get me wrong. Some people have figured out the residential. So I've got mates who, in Slough, who buy land and they build up. Okay. I've got mates who buy land, they buy houses, they make sure it's got space on the side, and they build a flat on the side to increase the value. So when you're increasing value to your property, by all means, yes, but buying a flat, in my opinion, that's all some people can afford. But to me, it's not the greatest investment in the world, because with flats, you can very rarely add value to it. And apart from the decorating you might do, or you might buy a big flat and turn it from a 2-bed flat to a 3-bed flat, then you can. But generally speaking, it's not, in my opinion, it's not the greatest investment all the time. As I said, I can go and, because I know how to do commercial property, I can go and get a private hire space, spend 60k and potentially make about 5-6k month profit. And if you calculate that over the span of time, let's just get the calculator out. And let's say we're looking at that one flat that person's bought as maybe making them £1,000 profit a month. Obviously there's capital gains, tax, this and that, but let's look at it in a simplistic way. 6,000 times by 12 is 72, assuming it's making 6k profit. You then times that by 25, that's 1.8 million over the 25-year period. Now, looking at that £1,000, let's say that £1,000 times 12 is 12,000. You then times that by 25, that's 300k. Then you've got to talk about maybe what the property has increased in value over the time. So that £1,000 may be the rental income they've taken in. And let's say that property is maybe increased by whatever. Let's say the property is increased by another 300k. Okay. By that time, let's just say in 25 years it's worth 300 grand. It's just a rough number. That's still 600k. I'm still 600 grand off better.
How much did it cost you to? Because you say you can go get a commercial property and spend X amount and then take out profit from it. So how much did it cost you to acquire that skill, that ability to go find a property, build it, etc., etc.? How much do you think you spent on your own personal development?
I think, remember, I started off doing events.
Yeah.
And the reason why I got into commercial property and getting my own space was that I said, if I can bring people to someone else's venue, why can't I bring them to my own? Simple maths. That was it. And I decided, and once again, I was give thanks to the family friend who gave me the money. So I had money of my own, and then he gave me money of my own tad, and then I eventually got Birmingham, and I just figured it out because I'd done events. I knew that marketing. I knew how to get people into my space. So if I can bring them into someone else's venue, it can come to mine. So I started off in Birmingham in 2016, and I went from there to London, and then I'm now on the verge of getting my 4th space. So what I wanted to do was eventually have one space in every part of London. So I've got North, I've got East, I've got South, now I finally got West, which is W1. I've got a place now just on the back of Oxford Street, which we're going to complete on Monday. Now, I always say that all of you guys that spend all this money on these silly courses, stop it. A lot of you are spending £1,000 to go to one course. Now, unless this gentleman or this lady is going to give you the blueprint, they're going to give you their suppliers, going to give you their lawyer, going to show you the websites where they buy stuff from. All of the information you're getting is just on the internet. Like, it's free information. If I'm going to tell you now, Wes, I'm going to charge you £1,000 to come on my course. If I'm not going to tell you who my builders are, this is my electrician, this is my plumber, this is my surveyor. If I'm not going to give you all these links, what are you spending the £1,000 for? If I'm not going to show you all of the hurdles and things that you can avoid, what? A lot of you just going in this courses, just sitting there, and this guy's telling you his story. This is my journey. So I spent £1,000 to hear your journey. Okay, what? Where are the links?
I hear it. You guys, look, please, in the comment section of this video, okay, if you watched this far, comment your honest, genuine opinion in regards to like mortgages. Do you have one? I would love to hear from you guys. Do you have a mortgage? What's your experience been like? What mindset did you have to get into before pursuing it? And most importantly, do you have one and do you regret it? Because I know a ton of people who regret getting a mortgage, and they're like, this is the worst thing that I've ever done. I am up here, I am barely living, I barely have any money after all my bills, and now I'm thinking to myself, like, what? I've got this up until what, 60 something years old, you know? And if it's interest only, then hey, you made your bed, you know the saying, right? Lie in it. So I don't, as I said, I generally don't want to say too much. I really wanted to check out this video because it was suggested to me by one of the subscribers, and I do have to say I completely agree. You know, there are some people who are in unique situations with unique skills, so they can take things to the next level because they know they have the know-hows and loopholes, and no problem, that's fine. But for the majority of everyone in the UK and US, worldwide essentially, it's not the bestest of things that you could do with your money, especially if you're not good with finances. You can't even think of the last time you read 2 financial based books because you're not really that interested in it. I'm telling you, you have no idea what you're in for. There's a reason as to why all of the banks worldwide, in fact, all you see on TV ads and YouTube ads predominantly is like mortgages, you know, interest free. That's blasted everywhere. And then you hear successful person saying, you know, yeah, they're not really fond of all of that stuff. You can do it if you want, it's up to you, but the banks want your money. The banks, they want this, they want that. They're tricking you. You hear all of that. I'm sure you've come across it before. But anyways, to each their own. I don't want to talk too much. As I said, even though we ended up mentioning that, but I do have to say it because it's the truth. But yeah. Anyways, like, subscribe, do all of that stuff. Let me know your comments in the comment section down below for the YouTube algorithm. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one. God bless.